Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I want to talk about the new movie, The Black Phone. The Black Phone is a new movie directed by Scott Derrickson, who knows his way around horror movies pretty well, most notably directing the films like Sinister, Exorcism of Emily Rose, one of my favorite horror movies, Deliver Us from Evil, and oddly enough, the first Doctor Strange movie. This movie was being marketed with a score of 100% on Rotten Tomatoes, so I wanted to go check it out. The synopsis is as follows. Finney Shaw is a shy but clever 13-year-old boy who's being held in a soundproof basement by a sadistic masked killer. When a disconnected phone on the wall starts to ring, he soon discovers that he can hear the voices of the murderer's previous victims, and they are dead set on making sure that what happened to them doesn't happen to Finney. So without further ado, let's get into the 6 things that make a movie great. Number 1, the plot. The plot of this movie is pretty much exactly what the synopsis says. Finney and his sister Gwen start seeing many of the children from their school disappearing, all taken by the grabber. When Finney ends up disappearing, Gwen ends up helping detectives with the case based on dreams that she's having that end up being true. It's established pretty early on that Gwen is clairvoyant, and it was shown in the trailers, and it was a really cool dynamic that they added to this film. I think that the idea of the black phone and all of the grabber's previous victims talking to Finney through the phone is a really unique and interesting idea that played well out on screen. The only gripe I had is that the finale for this film did not finish very strong. I honestly don't know how they could have done it better, but I just didn't feel fulfilled at the end of the movie. They tried to add a couple twists at the end of the movie, but it wasn't enough to support this film after having pretty much seen the entire movie in the trailer. I'm starting to get really upset with trailers giving away the entire movie, and The Black Phone follows suit with that. Barring that unfortunate incident, plot gets a thumbs up. 2 is family friendliness. This horror/thriller is rated R, and rightfully so. There is a ton of profanity. There's blood and gore in certain situations. There's some domestic neglect/abuse. There's some pretty frightening visuals, which is typical for a Blumhouse film. And the whole tone of this movie is about this guy kidnapping and killing kids. So it's a pretty dark film. There's no sex, there's no nudity, but the profanity and dark nature of this film overall is what pushes it over the edge. So family friendliness gets a thumbs down. 3 is acting and script. While I only recognized a couple of the actors in this film, they aren't the ones that caught my attention. Ethan Hawke plays the grabber, and I think he does a really good job playing the character he was supposed to play. For some reason, something in his performance reminded me of Nick Nolte for some reason, which I think made him a bit more menacing. Mason Thames does a good job as Finney, but the actress who stole the show for me was Madeline McGraw. Her performance in this film was amazing. As her dreams start to get more consistent and more frightening, her conversations with God, her interactions with the school bullies and with her brother and with her father, all of it was very convincing and held my attention the entire time. So major props, because she did an excellent job. All of the other acting performances were decent, but Madeline's was by far the best performance. I thought the script of this movie was excellent. The idea behind this film was very well done, and I think it was executed well on screen, but the interactions between characters, all of their lines were very believable, so I think they did a really good job with the script. Acting and script get a thumbs up. 4 is character development. They developed the character of Finney very well at the beginning of this film, and they did it in a way that didn't take a super long time, but focused on what it needed to so that you understand the character of Finney, where he's coming from, what his weaknesses are, his fears are, and the way that he thinks and operates. They did the same thing with his sister Gwen, to the point where you understand her character very well. The thing I thought was really interesting about this movie is that both of these characters acted within the emotional trauma that they had experienced both from their father, played by Jeremy Davies, and what they face at school on a daily basis. Many times movies fumble the ball when it comes to this, and that's something I haven't seen in a movie for a long time. The one thing that I wanted more from in character development was from the grabber. There are some really interesting dynamics involved with the grabber that we don't get to see much character development at all in regards to. You get some development and tendencies from Finney's conversations with the previous victims on the phone about the grabber, but we don't have an understanding of why the grabber does what he does, what the different masks he wears means, or why he leaves black balloons at the scenes of his kidnappings. I don't think that always needs to be explained, but it seemed like a lot of the things surrounding the grabber were pretty ambiguous. So I wish they would have given us a little bit more, but overall character development did a pretty good job, so it gets a thumbs up. 5 is visuals and CGI. They use some CGI in this movie, but not a ton. There are some pretty scary scenes and some flashbacks that we see, but none of it's very distracting and it seems to go pretty well with the movie. Some of the visuals in this movie were pretty creepy. I think there are 3 jump scares throughout the film, but the rest of the visuals in this movie were actually really cool. So the way that they wove these scenes together and some of the visuals they created were very creative and well done. So visuals and CGI gets a thumbs up. And 6 is rewatchability. This movie is an hour and 42 minutes long, and while that's not long at all for a film in general, this movie is a pretty slow movie. I think that's multiplied by the fact that if you've seen a trailer for this film, you've seen a lot of the movie. And so the whole time it seems like you're waiting for something big that they didn't show to happen, and you're never given that. All that to say, this movie feels a lot longer than it actually is. Don't get me wrong, this movie is very well made, but given its pacing and the dark nature of this film, I don't really see myself watching it again. So rewatchability gets a 50-50. With all those areas considered, I have to give The Black Phone an 8 out of 10. This movie had a really interesting concept behind it, some really good acting by Madeline McGraw, some funny lines, some heartfelt moments, some creative visuals, and a pretty good runtime. Although there was a lot of ambiguity surrounding the antagonist, and the ending of the movie kind of left me not really feeling fulfilled, this was one of the better horror/thriller movies that I've seen in a long time. So if you're a fan of horror movies and you don't mind a slower paced film, I would recommend going to see The Black Phone in theaters. Whatever you do, stay away from the trailers, because if you've seen the trailer, you've seen the whole movie. Thank you so much for watching. If you've seen The Black Phone, please let me know what you thought about it in the comments below. As always, I appreciate your love and support, and I'll catch you guys and gals in the next one.